Hello, everyone, and welcome to GlueUp's Conference and Meeting Trends Post-Pandemic event. I'm Patrick Shanahan, Enterprise Sales Manager here at GlueUp. GlueUp's an all-in-one membership, community engagement, and event management software platform with mobile apps built to streamline and future-proof clients such as associations, business networks, chambers of commerce, and more, mostly member-based organizations. With us today are some very special guest panelists. We've got Sibel Jones, who's the CEO of the Society of Experiential Graphic Design, Luz Lobos. She's the president of Synergy Design Group. Farouk Ijaz, who's the managing partner and president of consulting services at Consulting Services USA. We have Randall Chenworth, who's the director of education at the Mechanical Contractors Association of Metro Washington. We have Donna Hines, who's the technology coordinator for the National Association of County Office Employees. With me, as always, is my CEO and the founder of GlueUp, Eric Schmidt. They'll be discussing some conference and meeting trends in our new world, and we hope to gain insights of the future of the event landscape. If you have any questions during the event, please type it in the Q&A into the chat, and we'll do our best to address your questions that you may have. And over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Pat, and welcome everybody this beautiful afternoon here in Virginia, and thanks for everybody else joining wherever you may be located today. We're going to get started. I do want to first make sure our panelists have a chance to introduce themselves and certainly where they are within the sort of the meetings and conference industry, and so people have just a quick understanding of some of the background, and then we'll jump into some of the questions that we do have. As Pat mentioned, if you do have any questions throughout the discussion today, feel free to throw those in the Q&A chat, and we will try to get to them throughout the session. So, welcome, panelists. We're gonna start with Sibel, if you don't mind, just giving us a quick background on your great organization and obviously of yourself.
Oh, thank you, Eric. So yeah, I'm CEO of SEGD. We are the Society for Experiential Graphic Design. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we're an international interdisciplinary membership organization. And our members do things like they design museum exhibitions, they do digital media and branded installations, wayfinding and placemaking for entertainment, sports, hospitals, transportation. And we are an event-based organization. We typically have one main conference annually and then probably 4 to 5 other events with our national group. And then we have nearly 50 chapters around the country and the world. And we just turned 50 this year. So we just had our big 50th celebration in DC. And thank you, Eric. We're really excited to be here and participate.
Thank you. Great to see you. Farouk?
Yes, I'm Farouk Ijaz, president of Consulting Services USA. This is a firm that I started last year, doing transportation engineering and planning in the New York and New Jersey metropolitan area. And I am actually very related to the transportation industry, an organization called Institute of Transportation Engineers, which has a national chapter, and it has, all the states have their own sections, and I am the past president of one of the biggest chapters or sections in the New York and New Jersey area. We do events every month, I would say, and definitely I would want to talk about what Glue has brought us in COVID and pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Great. Luz? Welcome. We're attending the same event in Orlando, so I'm glad she was able to join us here today.
Thank you for the invitation. I've been in the industry of exhibiting for 23 years, started Synergy back in 2000, gone through ups and downs and all kinds of trends. We transitioned into national turnkey exhibit solution company. So it's really a lot of fun to really work with national clients as well as international clients coming to exhibit to the US.
Great. Randall, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric, and definitely excited to be a part of this conversation. My name is Randall Chenworth. I'm based out of DC or Metro Washington area. I work for Mechanical Contractors Association. We are pretty much a group of about 90 contractors or construction contractors that are specialized in mechanical. We are based in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia, Northern Virginia area, or at least most of our members fall in that location. So, in regards to Glue Up, we've been using it now for a few years. It's definitely been a great resource for us. We're pretty active in regards to training and meetings and things like that. Things on my plate annually. We have about 40 sessions that we offer per year in regards to training. So Glue Up's been a great fit for that. Looking forward to hoping to expand on the conversation about how it's been a fit and the pivots we've kind of had to make these past few years.
Great. Donna, welcome.
Thanks for having me. The National Association of County Office Employees represents and advocates for the federal employees that work for the Farm Service Agency, which is a branch inside of USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. So that's what NASCO does for our members. We have about 4,700 members, and they're all across the United States, in every county in the United States. And so every state has its own association underneath the National Association. So every state also has its own chapter. So we are relatively new users to the Glue Up platform, and we're so glad to have it as we're on the kind of the cusp of a possible government shutdown. This is going to be a very useful tool for us. And so we are kind of really excited to see what this is going to hold for us as we move forward through this. But yeah, I'm glad to be here, and looking also to learn from some of you, because I see that some of you are very active in the digital and virtual tools of this. So we're happy to be here.
Great, and thank you. And we're all praying that there's no government shutdown. So hopefully we don't get to that point. But Sibel, why don't we start with you? I mean, and just to give you a background on my first question here, those of us that have been attending events, I think for certainly the last 6 months, we've seen a huge increase in the number of participants. It feels like if you go to the events, people want to be back in person. They enjoy connecting with people again. And you're getting a lot of senior level people that are attending these events, which pre-COVID seemed to be people maybe a little bit tired, maybe were a little bit, the same event again, oh, I have to go, and deciding to skip out on it in some cases. So, looking at, sort of what you see, and certainly your industry covers a lot of people that are seeing many different things. Can you give just a background on what you're seeing now within the event and meetings industry, and any trends that you may be a little bit different from, pre-COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people, and we just had our 50th anniversary, as I mentioned, in Washington, D.C. For that, we launched a new website and introduced everyone to our Glue Up membership platform. We had the largest gathering in the history of our 50 years. And we had a lot of senior members. We had fellows attend from all around the country. We had emerging professionals, and people were just blown away and thrilled. I think right now, the technology that we have, you can't simulate that human connection. And people are going to prioritize. They're probably not going to do as many because they have a lot of choices to do virtual. But when they commit and when there's a desire to come, people seem to be thrilled and they're really excited. But I think the differentiators are content. And when we did our post-conference survey, content was king. It was the speakers and it was the subject matter that they were talking about that they ranked the highest. And then the next thing that they ranked was the networking opportunities. So I think what we see, and it's also in our profession, is that there's an elevated need for curation content that really is relevant to people, and giving them platforms for networking and the things that they can only do in person. So for example, industry partner meetups, anything that you can do concierge to make it worth their time and effort. Another trend, though, at the kind of opposite end, is that we had something called our academic summit that we would host every year as part of our annual conference. That was for educators and emerging professionals and students and mentors. That we went with everything else virtual in 2020, and that would normally be attended by 50 people. It hit 300 the first year. We had attendance from, and that's a free event. We had attendance from every continent. We had people of all different backgrounds. And I think the advantage of virtual in that sense is it breaks a lot of barriers. So people that couldn't afford to travel, people that may be emerging professionals, or their boss, or they don't have access for someone to pay for them to attend and cover those costs. So I think those are both great lessons learned. But I will tell you, Eric, once people got their white label app downloaded for the SUGD at the conference, we could see them sharing contacts, looking speakers up. So I think that level of, that's where we go to like bespoke and concierge, and what can we do to really enhance that personalization definitely made a difference for us.
And so when you say record numbers, so if you were to compare that attendee level from, what was it pre-COVID and what was it at this last event?
Well, this is our third back in person conference.
Okay.
And it was nearly double what we were in Portland. DC is a great location also, and we really pushed the content and kind of customized experiences, tours, special luncheon and workshops and things like that. So we pushed our content to a very high level and really focused on experience and immersion and those kinds of things that create a bespoke experience, I think, overall.
Sure, that's great. Liz, obviously in your industry and certainly your aspect that you serve with, obviously the clients that you work with, a little bit different, but can you give us just some idea of what you've seen sort of over the last 2 years and the changes from pandemic to today, and how you think that continues to evolve for the events industry?
Sure. In the beginning, people were a little bit scared of, starting to interact and travel. Since then, we've seen it come almost to pre-pandemic numbers, if not more. Sometimes of the events that are not hybrid, that are all in person. One of the issues is also that the increase in cost for implementation. Labor, material handling, freight, all these come into play, whether you're a show organizer, an exhibitor, or participant. So therefore, the companies that have committed more of the people who are intentional, the decision makers. There are no extra people accompanying the groups, you know what I mean? So in a way, it makes it more focused and the engagement a lot more effective in that sense. And also, obviously, the integration of technology, the apps, people wanting to engage, even the smaller participants and exhibitors really going towards the touchscreen, the engagement, not necessarily the entertainment, but more of like, how can we educate? How can we grow together? As well as seeing organizations come together and collaborate into one event. So sometimes the smaller organization can use the software, the CRM, the integration that you have available, and really participate with another chamber or another organization and create an event that therefore becomes effective and affordable for most of the people participating.
Affordable is always important if you want to look at the sizes of events, but never easy to do, as inflation has certainly hit the hotel industry pretty hard with the price of food and certainly the cost of labor. So that definitely has an impact on ticket prices that we see for a lot of events that we deal with. Donna, obviously you guys are national across the nation. As you guys are looking at your event strategy, how has that evolved over the last 2 years, and how are you thinking about that sort of moving forward with the folks that you work with?
Sure. So I'll just echo what she just said. At our last convention, which just in August, there were 3 other, hold on, let me count again. So we had national, and then there were 3 other groups that are also associated with us that tagged on to our convention. So they also met at our convention. We just booked they just needed a meeting room, but they were all there also because of another meeting. So it was like it just made sense, right? So they just needed a meeting room. They just need a very small meeting room. And so the hotel was super accommodating. And so we just grabbed them a meeting room, and so they could be there and collaborate. Just kind of tagging on those other small groups with your group just opens the door for more networking and more communication and building those relationships. That's what our members want, is building those relationships and making those connections. And ours was upper management. So it was important to build those connections and see, just make them relatable is where it really came down to. So I'm sorry, repeat the question one more time, because I was tagging back to what she said.
No problem. I mean, and actually, it is a very interesting thing that a lot of organizations can work with, and certainly as they continue to build. But as you guys are looking at your event strategy, again, obviously, we went pandemic, everything is virtual, and now we're looking at maybe a mix. How are you thinking about that for your guys,
Okay.
programs?
It's funny you should ask, because we just created a committee for this, because we are actually going to condense down our convention, because we have realized how expensive it is post pandemic. It is crazy expensive to host things on site. It simply is. Everything is expensive. So what we're doing is we have a lot of breakout sessions. So we're condensing that. We're holding some of those virtual pre-convention. And then at convention, we're going to come back and bring that full circle and hold the closing session for each of those breakout sessions in person, wrap it up, find the conclusions, and provide the final answers to members at convention. So our breakout sessions are things that members want. Benefits, and it's not applicable to everything, but benefits has a section, and software has a section, and enhancements that we want. So a lot of times there's breakout sessions and questions, and all those things get funneled out and then brought back at the end to full circle. Well, we're going to have all of that done prior, and then come convention, it'll just be the closing meeting. So that'll condense it down there. Also, we have usually 2 night events, which is also expensive. Meals are pricey. And so we're going to condense that down to probably one just really nice night event, evening meal. So we're looking at that also. So that's kind of where we are with that. Always looking to kind of save money, to be budget minded, because it's members' money that we're spending on this, and people, it's expensive. Not everybody's at the same point in their career when coming to conventions. So you have to be mindful of those things.
Absolutely. Farouk, again, you guys have been extremely active. I know pre-COVID, you guys were, I don't want to say every week, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you guys were extremely busy with the events that you were hosting around the New York and New Jersey area. Can you give us a sense of, where you guys at today? How has that shifted from, 2 years ago? And how are you guys thinking about this as you move forward here?
Absolutely. So we started in 2019, end of 2019, just before COVID, we implemented the system, and it was a great system, and we were like very excited, let's implement. And then we did one in-person event. And our organization is an organization that has, like, every month there is an event going on in New York and New Jersey. And we have to go through every, loops and hoops of restaurants and, ticketing and all that. So we did it in 2019. And our next event was January, past President Night. And at that time, COVID was the main issue. And we actually switched virtually seamlessly from 2020 all the way up to 2022. And in between, what we did was we actually collaborated between, like, different sections very seamlessly. So we had, like, a speaker from our section and a speaker in California. So everybody joined. The attendance went up pretty high. But it's a virtual event, so the cost was very minimal. So that was one item that we looked at. But our organization decided, like, when I became the president in 2022, that our January event on 2022 should be an in-person event. The reason we switched from virtual to in-person was the cost, because there's a lot of, like, cost to do a hybrid event. So you have to have somebody there managing, and then, you have to have a good internet connection, and a lot of places have Wi-Fi and all that. So there was a big issue. So we just seamlessly, or just like change everything in 2022. We came back in January, we expected, but our first event was in March because we pushed. I still remember one of my friend who came in at the event, and it was about 150 people the first time, and he there was like no mask, and he was like, "Oh, this is the first event I have been in with a lot of people so close to each other without the mask." So I still remember that. I was like, okay, so since then we have been in person. There are hybrid events, so definitely our event number has gone up, and you have to be, we are balancing it. The issues that we have seen is, more in New York and New Jersey, a lot of restaurants has closed, so we have to find new venues. And once we find a new venue, then we have to increase the cost of the ticket. So our membership, are okay with that, because they're everything is increasing in price. So they're like, okay, we'll expect to pay more now. But yeah, we have been in person for the last 1.5 year, I would say. So it has been good.
So, and just, on that, because of the function of your organization, are most of those events after work events?
Yes. So our mostly it starts at 4 o'clock. So every month we have an event. So we are New York and New Jersey. So we try to do every month, like either in New York or New Jersey. And 4 o'clock is the general time that we start our event. So 4 to 5 is a presentation, and 5 to 6:30 is a networking session. And then after that, there is another presentation. And our speakers are more government related, like more commissioner level, executive of Port Authority, agency, New York City DOT. So those are our customers that comes into our event as a keynote speaker.
Right. All right. So I guess looking, Randall, this topic that we're talking about when it comes to cost, how have you guys started to look at cost impacting your event calendar, and how you're planning both your trainings as well as some of the member get-togethers that you may be running?
Yeah, there's definitely been an adjustment to cost. I could say, especially as we mentioned the inflation and the past year or two, how that's kind of ramped up. We've definitely seen that in regards to the budget getting tightened up. Our timeline was pretty simple. Pre-COVID, we were pretty much all in person. We didn't explore remote. It wasn't something we everybody was aware of Zoom and that side of things, but it just wasn't really addressed up until that point, or had been forced to been used. COVID threw us right into it. The few months after COVID, or that first 6 to 9 month period, was all remote for us. So again, as we kind of mentioned, there was pretty seamless for us as well. We were definitely able to make the adjustment. As I mentioned, we're mechanical contractors, so a lot of our membership, it was, they were working more actually during the pandemic as a result of doing hospital work and some of the things they had to do as a byproduct, of the reality. But yeah, definitely costs. We've seen that go up. Like I said, remote classes, I'd say that's probably the biggest benefit, is to help save costs. Obviously, speakers have their fees and things of that nature, but yeah, when we're in person, we've seen that from food costs to travel costs to the location costs as well. We're actually, one of the big adjustments, we've recently switched offices the past few years, and we've been lucky enough to have a training space that's within our building. So that's been a huge one. If we didn't have that piece, we would have had to completely revamp our budget expectations. So I would say, and that covers our trainings. We have a whole other set of events that we host that don't fall into the training setup. They're more of a membership meeting, or have different formats to them. So those are usually going to be off-site, almost guaranteed. And we've definitely seen the prices go up from like every level almost.
Yeah, Liz, as you've seen in the clients that you've been working with, and the events that they've been engaged with, what kind of creative ways have you seen folks dealing with inflation to still have a similar impact and a similar engagement to get the results that they're looking for?
Well, definitely using software and apps to engage pre-show to post-show, and condensing sometimes their space. So 10 by 20 space can do as much with touch screens and some interactivity as a 20-foot by 20-foot space used to before. As well, obviously with the use of light and all kinds of technology. Now, one thing that they're doing is sustainable exhibits. So something we do is, for instance, using, you have a 3D sign, you have different elements, wood, materials that we can use one time that they can reuse other times as well, as opposed to having to reinvest on a per show basis. So a lot of long-term planning with the short-term planning as well.
About what are you guys doing to deal with the cost issue, and are you finding some creative ways to continue engagement, but still making the full impact that you're hoping to through your programs?
Yeah, so with the national, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I think it depends on what scale space. We've looked at unique locations. So for example, we have a technology event and a branded environment event. They used to be two separate events in two separate cities. We decided, because we did them virtually for 2 years, last year we tested them out as a side-by-side, so you could purchase, because they're similar, they could be similar because there's a lot of technology in branded experiences. And so we held them in Queens, and we held them at a museum. We held them at the Museum of the Moving Image, and that was a different kind of space. I think it was a win-win because the museum loved having our members there, and it also created a really cool space for breakout. So I think sometimes, obviously for our annual conference, we can't use that model because we need, to host it at a large venue, which would be a hotel with an expo space. I agree with Liz that you can find smaller ways. So highlighting technologies and maybe a smaller, table kind of setting rather than having to set up a 20 by 40 or something like that. Also hosting at member offices. So people are looking to get their staff back in the office. And so if you want to highlight what is unique about that office space or the technology or some of the projects as case studies is a really inventful way. And we've found that that's been working great for our chapters. So we can do tours of vendors, shops, we can highlight projects that open, we can highlight new technologies. So I think it depends on the scale, but certainly for not our national conference, but for the other events that we have, we've kind of been thinking about how do we take that content and place it in a location or at different venues that'll really enhance the content.
Right. And now, actually, a related question, because you have so many of the folks that are your members. As you look at what people are experiencing now, are there new skills that a event manager or somebody coming up in the event industry needs to do now that they maybe didn't need to previously?
Yeah, to be really honest, I think there's a tension generationally, and again, I'll look to Liz about that because there's the trade show mindset, but I think the next generation really wants to focus on education. So they want to understand, are you sustainable? What are your values as an organization? So I think right now we're experimenting with how we might have different ways to engage. I think augmented reality is going to be huge. Glassless 3D, getting that sense of space without actually utilizing the space. AR, where we can, and even with the GlueUp app, like how can I align with people that I either want to collaborate with, that I might potentially go pitch jobs or projects with, or like-minded, if I'm into tech, I want to meet and have a forum for discussing problem solving amongst a platform. So I think that, augmented reality, AR, Chat GTP, it's interesting. There's a lot of questions about it, but I think people are utilizing it because it can help a lot. It can help personalize, and personalized to me seems to be the differentiator of why people are going to actually attend something, whether it's virtual or in person.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole event experience is, has been ripe for change for quite some while, but sort of got accelerated with the pandemic and how people had to modify their interactions, both online, but also the lack of offline experiences at that time. Never a simple thing to make any transition, but when you're forced to, you either adapt or, you just have to, do nothing, unfortunately. And many people decided to do the first as a second, and event people are not necessarily known as lazy folks. So you got to be active to be in the events industry. So it is something that continues to move forward. Donna, as you guys are thinking about, and again, not only the big event that you guys are hosting, but throughout all your chapters and trying to advise them, how are you guys talking to them about what they should be doing in terms of their event engagement, but also that member experience that you're hoping to deliver, from national down to your chapters?
So it's really about, it's hard. First of all, you have to consider, what city or what small city you're going to host in, because kind of drives the cost of everything, right? So sometimes, maybe not a big touristy destination is the right choice. So for example, this August, we hosted in a smaller Texas city called College Station. It's a college town, but during the summer, there's no college students. And so the town itself is looking for an event to come. And so, we were able to get a nice sized grant if we met certain criteria, right? So that's always something that associations, chambers, you should be considering when looking for cities to host in. Whether you're big or small, you should be fiscally responsible, and that should be something you should be considering. Touristy destinations, with beautiful scenery are great, but sometimes people simply cannot go because they cannot afford a $325 a night hotel room. That's the reality of things. Plus food, plus airfare, plus all the things. So that's what we talk to our states about, and that's what we have 5 area rallies every year. And this year, our first one was hosted in Alaska in an off-season time, which was great because the hotel rooms were cheap. The flights were, a little bit more expensive, but because the hotel rooms were cheap, it was great. It wasn't a huge attendance. There were only about 35 people that went, but the people that went had a fabulous time. The pictures were amazing that were posted on the app. It drove member engagement. And people like, oh man, I want to make sure I attend that rally next time, wherever it's going to be held, because that group had a fabulous time. So, just kind of picking a location that is fiscally responsible, but still going to draw, because of the location, still draw some fun activities, is kind of a balance that associations need to keep in mind. It's hard. It's so hard, but you have to remember those things because, like I said, everybody's at a different point in their career. Not everybody can afford that. And so you have to remember that. And some virtual options for people are sometimes, the way to go. And maybe not, not offer the whole convention virtual, because that takes away from the people that did pay to go. So maybe offering little snippets like, okay, if you want to see this really high level speaker that we have coming, it's going to cost you this. And here's the cost for it, and you can log in and here it is. So, there's opportunities for some virtual little things to happen, but what we decided to do is not offer the entire thing virtual anymore. It takes away from those states hosting, and it takes a huge workforce to host a convention, and it just takes away from all of that. If people can just jump in and just attend virtually, it just wasn't fair. So that's where we are with that.
Great, Farouk, as you look at your chapter, and certainly, every chapter, in any organization, any chapter organization, the challenge is always how to make enough money to sustain the chapter, and so it's, it has sustainability. As you guys think about this, and again, you're in probably, one of the most expensive markets in the country when it comes to food and hotels. How are you guys adapting to the new pricing structure, and how is that driving potentially how you guys are doing events differently in those member interactions?
Oh, absolutely. So I think there are two items that I'll discuss. I think one is related as well, that mentioned that government organization. So we are hosting it in the offices of government. So a lot of people go there, and then it's you just need to bring in food. And that's one strategy that we have pursued many times. The other one is what we are trying to do is we're trying to partner with similar organizations. So we're trying to see synergies in our organization and different organization, and we tell them like, we'll bring in a high-level speaker, and you bring also a high-level speaker. We'll collaborate and cost share, the event, everything. And it's based on how many people from their organization attend and how many people our. The reason we have done this is because sometimes or most of the time, there is a minimum required in an event. So whenever we sign a contract with a restaurant, they will say, oh, we can only sign 100 people, 120 people. And we are like, okay, maybe we'll meet that, or 150 people. So that's where we try to collaborate with other people and say that, okay, when you do an event, how many people, kind of come in with a geographical location, try to synergize it. So basically we don't lose money, we break even because we're a nonprofit organization. So those are the two tactics that we have, done in the past, and we're doing it.
That's good. That means you're doing it right. All right. Brendel, how about you?
Definitely want to highlight, that's one thing you mentioned there about the teaming up. One dynamic we had, one of the pivots we did during COVID was to reach out to other other MCAs across the country. So for us, we have pretty much every major city has what we do there, but we're all separate entities too. So we're kind of connected, but we're kind of not, especially when it comes to funding and whatnot. But that was one of our things, was to reach out and formulate a group that was all had the same goals, same education needs, and we got around and had a similar plan to where, in order to split the cost, what we did was one person or one group would take care of one cost, and we'd all kind of team up and get a chance to offer 5 sessions out of it. So it kind of became buy one, get 5 out of it in a way. To this day, that's actually still something we utilize. Our classes are hybrid now. We're either going to be in person or remote. We don't really do a hybrid session in itself. They're either going to be one or the other in that sense. But yeah, I think definitely that's something to keep in mind. If you have other associations or other relationships you can lean on. For us, we also have other trades we can work with. Electrical is an example. We're mechanical. We reached out to our electrical counterparts to team up and help spread some costs as well. So it's funny, coming previously in the previous life, I wasn't in the association world, and now being in it for the past 5 years, the value of networking it's hard to put a price tag on it. And a lot of it just starts with the conversation and knowing and utilizing the resources you have around you. And that was all something that the remote world kind of forced us to have to think about. And to this day, it kind of shapes how we think about events. Hey, is this an event? Maybe we should reach out to some counterparts in a different city. It has really stuck to kind of been ingrained in our thought processes now.
Very interesting. And do you think that go ahead.
So I'll just add one more item. I just remembered. So basically, we also did like sponsorship, refurbish basically. So now what we are trying to do is trying to engage more sponsorship. We're giving them more opportunity. So basically, if they sponsor an event, so they get something from the event, either a banner, or they get like 5 minutes of speaking, or they are in collaboration with us in setting up the speaker. So there are some items that from the sponsorship level that we have done to alleviate the cost, basically.
Do you think that the sponsors have shifted what they're investing in, or you've been able to bring them in because you have been doing what you've been doing for so long?
So I think there are both ways. I think the one is basically we have enhanced because there is now more opportunity if we publicize their company in LinkedIn and using the social media, they're like, oh yeah, why not? I need to be a sponsor. So then that's one item. The other one is like whenever you're in a meeting, they're like, okay, can we like speak for like 5 minutes in the meeting or 3 minutes? So those are enticing like things that we're giving to them, and then that's how we prepare our package for the whole year. So we don't go by event. We said we will give you within a year, maybe some tickets free and maybe participation, getting a podium for 2-3 minutes, and we'll publicize your logo in different aspects and all that. So that brings in a little bit more money, and we can invest in the members actually.
Right. Don, I see you agreeing with him on a couple points there.
Yeah, sponsorships are a great way. You can get them to sponsor a meal. You can get them to donate to like your on-site, welcome bags. You can get, the possibilities are really endless. It's just, and promoting their company, whether it's on your website or on the Glue Up event or social media, LinkedIn, helping them to get more reach is always a little selling point. Sometimes their companies are like super local and it's not, a great bang for their buck, but sometimes they're super proud local companies and they're so honored to be represented and to have their logo out there, and maybe they will get a click from someone, and who knows what that reach will bring for them, So yes, sponsorships, donations, whatever you want to call them, are always a great way to help offset some costs of an event. Get some goodie bag stuff. I don't know if y'all do goodie bags, event bags, welcome bags, whatever you want to call them. That's always a great way to help some of those costs and that sort of thing.
Sibel, have you seen a change in how sponsors are looking at your events? And certainly, obviously, you're probably asking for money because it's costing a little bit more, but where's that expectation and how have you guys been successful?
I think where I'm seeing and really having that conversation with our sponsors is that there's longevity. They invest a lot at our conference to do sizzle reels. I mean, really top notch 1 to 3 minute sizzle reels. And every time they send it, it's always too long based on their contract. And they're upset because they spent a lot of money. And this is where the digital platform, I think, increases longevity and exposure. So we say we'll post it on the website, we'll post it on GlueUp, we'll share it out on social media, we'll write an article about it. We're very clear with our new website what is a paid for, but we call it a partnership. We don't call it a sponsorship. We've changed the terminology. I think it's more respectful to them to be called partners, and they are content providers. So this is where the digital is really helping. I think it gets a lot more eyes. If, when we do virtual programming, we'll have a Dropbox and we share their videos and their documents there. We had a couple sponsors this year for the conference in DC actually offer NFTs instead of a paper document in a bag that might get thrown away and isn't very sustainable. And then they promoted that through LinkedIn and Instagram. So I think we're going to be seeing more of those things. We also have been trying to encourage people to do fun and meaningful things, so that we had like a cap done with SCGD's new logo on the front and then their brand name on the back, but you could flip it around. And then we did a hashtag challenge. So we wanted people to wear those hats and when they were in DC and share them. So I think, there are unique ways now to get more exposure, and that can transfer from what they do in person, and then that can live in the digital realm and get a lot more eyes on it.
Well, on that same, talking about engagement, but also impact, are they asking for different things as a partner in terms of results, and are they seeing those results, post-pandemic here?
Yeah, that is where our Google Analytics and all of this comes into play. Our surveys, they want to see the numbers, and we're pretty small, like we're a staff of 6. but we have a very large outreach. You know, our website gets millions of views because we have a really great Global Design Awards. So it can be a challenge, but with these new platforms, with the new website, with the new GlueUp platform, we're hoping that we can really give better analytics to them to show them that exposure. And I'm hoping that will give us more year-long sponsors, because they can have something, they can have a banner on the website, they can link to a thought leadership program. We are offering them to sponsor things that are free with students, so they get in front of emerging professionals. So that's a win-win there. And so I think the digital is a great way to enhance. And then also having fun, like really fun, unique, bespoke, memorable events makes a big difference. And I always love to quote Maya Angelou, who says, you know, people will forget what you said and what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And so I always try to encourage our sponsors that it really is about that qualitative over quantitative. And the one thing I think we all suffered through during COVID was this oversaturation of virtual programming. And even I would sign up for things and they were amazing speaker, but you're just like, I can't do one more webinar. So quality is where I see the differentiator, whether it's in person, make it really special, make those touch points memorable and bespoke. And it's the same thing with the virtual, because there's so much competition out there for people's time.
Absolutely. Luz, I guess, you know, looking at it from your perspective and the clients that are going to some of these expos and some of these programs that you guys are working with, are their expectations changing at all in terms of what they're expecting and how they're measuring things?
In terms of the exhibitors or the sponsors?
Either.
Either or, yeah. So exhibitors, they're obviously expecting a bigger bill. No, I'm just kidding. But besides the larger investment, what it is, it's like what Isabel was just mentioning, is the digital assets being repurposed for, you know, in digital media and just a lot of different ways. So it lives a little bit longer. What they are expecting is a little bit more of a turnkey of the details, the technology, the use of apps, you know, like yours, to like really streamline the process and gather that information. I think what she said is key in terms of being able to prolong that partnership, because they're seeing the results. And I feel that that is something that they're coming to the show floor more educated, because they realize what are the goals, what are the metrics we're going to have, and how can I justify this to the higher ups. If I'm a marketing department, it's not just about visibility, it's about you know, growth, interaction, and connection, which is what was missing during the pandemic, right? That person to person ability to connect. So a lot of times the engagement, you could see the numbers, but you couldn't tell if they were really there or they had just left their computer on and you know, and weren't really paying attention. So it's a lot of more focused engagement.
And before I do get to the next question, if anybody else, you know, has any questions, feel free to pop it in the Q&A chat down at the bottom of your screen. Again, we got, you know, a little less than 10 minutes left, so we want to make sure anybody gets their questions answered before we close the day out. You know, and as we transition, again, engagement, you know, we look at members, especially because most folks, you know, on this panel are engaged with members. As you look at member benefits, how important is that member experience when it comes to events? And are you trying to do anything differently to make a member feel maybe a little bit more special as it relates to their investment in your organization? Somebody want to take that one first?
I'll take it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think this was one of the items that I started, you know, pushing for back in the day, even bank, now GlueUp. When we approach like an event, most of the time, like a couple of years back, our organization was more paper-based, and you know, you see a person, you say, oh yeah, that's Excel file, I'll highlight it, and then at the end, I will, like, you know, tally everything, and I have a paper. So what we did, like when we actually came in, the scanning part with a QR code, that was like one thing that, oh, so just get your badge, and then somebody was on the door, is like scan it, and everyone was like, oh, that was pretty cool, that's easy. So that's one thing that, I have seen, people telling me like, oh yeah, now you're more tech efficient organization. So that was one item that, and then in the background, there's a lot of like CRM and financials and campaigns. So we actually brought everything into one platform. I think that was the biggest benefit for us, because now you know how your organization is performing, and also what's your reach, because you have all the CRM, and who do you want to reach. So there you can build up strategies based on that. So that feels, member gets, personalized, attention, I would say.
Sabel?
Yeah, I think personalization, absolutely. I mean, a platform for them to feel like what is, the value of that membership. We had a listserv forever. And when I joined as CEO just in 2020, I was like, does anybody still use a listserv? But they were really using it. And I was scared to death that with us pushing everybody onto GlueUp, that we were going to get, people upset because they like to use things that they like to use. But actually, the majority just picked it up right away. And so now, I saw within a couple days of the conference, people that, had signed into their GlueUp were asking like, hey, I need a fabricator in Montreal, or I need this kind of a person in this region. And, people were responding. There was a young student who said, I'm new to the field and looking for advice, and so it's really great. I think that is important for your membership to find a place where they feel. We have talked as a board of creating different groups, a BIPOC group, LGBTQ plus, people can align and find a place that's comfortable, and they can communicate. So I think there's a lot beyond just chapters and area of practice that our membership can help and be supportive. We've had a mentorship program for young students, but now that's really reaching out to, like, older people are asking me, I want to be a CEO. How can I become a CEO? And so mentorship, I think, is lifelong. There are people that want to change their career in their, as they get older. So these are all great opportunities for a membership platform to help that happen and give that more personalized experience. I think they don't feel like a number, and that's what's really going to, make a difference for them. And then ways in which they can share out. We're finding that when we do these hashtag challenges, we'll do them, and we do a competition, and people are doing reels. A lot of companies will do reels, and they get so many eyes on them. So this is really also a great way, because it's a win-win. It helps me and it helps that member build audiences. So making sure to share back, to respond to people on social media, to respond on the GlueUp app. I try to take time, even as the CEO, to make sure that people know that, I'm there for them, and we're all very accessible, and we want to support, and we want everybody to succeed.
Absolutely. Randall, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. Great question. Actually, definitely it's thought-provoking. I think one way we definitely utilize or help to keep our members feel involved in the process and enjoy that membership experience, I would say feedback loops. Feedback loops are huge. Obviously, I think the committees for this is a big way to usually involve them in the process, whether it be the planning side or whether it be a post-event. For me, one of my greatest resources is my post-event. The last question I ask on every post-event survey, which is, what's something else you want to see? What's another class you want to see? Another idea you want to see? That literally guides my next few months of planning almost, because the patterns will kind of develop, right? If there's a need that's very common and you just give the opportunity for people to relay that to you, they'll start to reveal themselves. And naturally, you as you learn your membership, those needs will probably come secondhand. But I think the feedback loops are crucial with any dynamic of any company or any association. Just having means to to spread the information, like I said, whether it be on planning from a committee level or surveys and things throughout the year to just make sure you're involving the membership. I think it's really powerful, and I've seen it. I've seen it from the owner level who has come to me and requested a class, and then within a few months it's on the calendar, and they noticed that. I think that definitely helps to hammer down the concept that, hey, we're listening to your needs. We're trying to make this a unique experience for you as a customer, as a member, things like that.
Great. Let me get to, we do have one question that just came in here. So we'll send this over to Donna here. First, do you have any wisdom on the best way to expand into a hybrid program with regard to productivity, integrating a virtual component to your live in-person conference, especially related to in-person registration fees versus virtual, without detracting from and cannibalizing the in-person attendee numbers by having them just go virtual? I know that was quick. And Donna, any thoughts?
That was the long question. I'm sorry. Do I have any feedback on how to read it one more time?
To expand into a hybrid program. So by still keeping the in-person component thriving, but also adding the virtual side of things and obviously without cannibalizing the in-person attendee numbers.
So if you're a hybrid program, yeah. So if you're going to do a hybrid program, my advice would be, if you're going to offer, a speaker, it needs to be a really dynamic, awesome speaker, and offer that one virtual to not take away from what you're offering in person. And obviously, that one needs to be at a fee that represents, what they're worth. That would be something that I would probably explore. But I wouldn't do all of your speakers, because then, like you said, you take away from everything else that's happening at your event. But you also kind of have to look at who you're targeting, because, I know, you have to know your membership, like others have echoed. I know our employees are either towards the end of their career because of their ages, or at the beginning of their career. So there's not a whole lot of mid-career people in our agency. So the people towards the end of their career love to come, and they love to, it's kind of like a family reunion. They love it. It's fantastic to see them and get the experience and hear their work experience and pick up tips from them. So some of the young people love to come and network with them and get those work experiences. So you can kind of highlight some of those type of experiences for in person. So don't diminish in person just because you have a dynamic speaker that you're offering virtually in a hybrid situation, will probably be my advice, because there is something to pick up in person and networking, and there's amazing opportunities and connections that you can make.
Anybody else want to respond to that question?
Very challenging. I think it definitely is. It's pretty challenging dynamic to, because we mentioned this kind of earlier. When you're in person, the engagement is just completely different. You have a moving target to follow, right? It's a lot different when you're just sitting still on a Zoom setting. One thing I would just say, from the times I've tried it and the times we've explored it, is that you need to accommodate specifically for that remote group, right? You can't just leave, like we've tried before, where we hosted an in-person session and had almost like a video recording kind of style that people could zoom into. The feedback was naturally that they felt like they were a little less involved in the conversation and stuff like that. So what we found is we would have had, doing it over again, what we would have done is had a dedicated person sitting with that Zoom group or whatever software you're using, but just actually sitting with them. And when there is maybe a breakout in the live session in person, somebody that can actually accommodate for that group too. But I think another thing too is our in-persons are a lot longer. You get to the attention span struggle of having a 5-hour remote event or, just that natural, after about 90 minutes, I think everybody starts to get a little bit antsy, especially if they're on the remote side.
Yep. All right. Last question here, and I guess this is going to go back to you, Donna. What were the grant opportunities you found in the college towns? Is there a specific site to review for different states or areas?
That was found through the Chamber of Commerce in that town. And so when we are exploring event locations, that's something that we do 2 years out. So, we search, we ask for bids, okay? And so there's a bid process. I don't know what your process is, but there's a bid process. And so we explore several locations and we let them bid. And then those are the type of things that come up and that you explore during that process. Maybe smaller town, like I'm thinking Texas, because I'm in Texas, towns that are kind of near an airport, Amarillo, Lubbock, they're not huge metropolitan areas like Houston, San Antonio, smaller towns that are, still relatively close to an airport, but still have big meeting space, or something maybe that you should consider when you're looking for event space, because they'll have a little bit more to offer you. At least that's been our experience. And you have to just kind of see what's in your area. Obviously, the touristy destinations like Whitefish is beautiful. However, those are going to be a very expensive hotel, and they're not going to have to offer you a contract because they're going to be able to fill in with the tourists anyway. It's wonderful to go to a location like Whitefish, but you also have to consider the cost of a location like that for your members. So that's all I'll say to that. Please reach out if you need anything else.
Great, thank you. And we have reached our time. I see Pat is popping up here. I do want to thank all of our panelists for their time today. We appreciate it. I'm sure if any of you would like to connect with anyone on LinkedIn, I'm sure they would be more than happy to connect with folks on the call. But otherwise, turn it back over to Pat.
Yep, thanks, Eric. Special thanks to Sibel, Luz, Farouk, Randall, Donna, of course, you, Eric. I really liked this. I enjoyed it. Your insights have been really great in terms of event trends and strategies, things I've really never really thought about being on this side of the industry, regardless of the conversations we have daily with prospective clients and customers. So, and I also appreciate the attendees for staying. We'll follow up with the recording. If you're ever curious about GlueUp and how we help organizations, you can pop over to glueup.com. But I'll also be sending an email follow-up with the event recording. So in that, we could start a conversation there as well. So thanks to everybody, and appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Have a good afternoon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.